everyone. My name is Sarah Hazelness, and I am a second-year Food Corps service member, and I serve in Greenwood, Mississippi. So just a little bit about me before I start. I'm originally from upstate New York, and I have served in Greenwood, like I said, for 1 year. And my background is in public health and psychology. And as a Food Corps service member, I connect students with garden curriculum, try to connect them to healthy food, and we work on school gardens as part of their curriculum as well. Ms. Dorothy, would you like to introduce yourself before we get rolling?
I'm Dorothy Grady-Scarbrough, and I would say welcome to all of you. I run an organization called MEGA, Mississippians Engaged in Green and Agriculture, and that's centered around getting more local produce into our homes, our classrooms, the schools, to create a healthier Mississippi. And I'm also co-chair for Mississippi Farm to School Network. With that particular project, we're working mainly with our food service directors and our classrooms with our teachers to incorporate the Common Core curriculum around school gardens. So we'll be able to get school gardens into our public schools and private schools to help create a healthier Mississippi. My background is I'm a registered nurse by trade, but my love is in food. So I'm still nursing, but I'm doing it in a different approach. And I tell everyone that I do what I do because food is our medicine.
All right, so I'm going to kick us off with the first half of this session, and then we're going to let Ms. Dorothy take over. I'm going to be talking to you mostly about the kind of nuts and bolts of the school garden. But before we really get started, I'd like to know who's in the room with us. So I'm guessing we have some students, so please raise your hand if you're a student here. Awesome, we'd love to see that. Raise your hand if you're a teacher here. Okay, great. How about a community organizer? Any farmers? All right, anyone that I missed? Okay, and nonprofit workers. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So, thank you so much for coming. And what we're gonna start with, like I said, we're gonna talk about the nuts and bolts of school gardening first. Now, before you even pick up a tool and before you even decide where you're going to put it, XYZ, you need to have a really solid base behind you, right? You need to have the support in your community, you need to have those partnerships in play before you even start digging, or else what's going to happen to your garden? Anyone want to take a guess? It's going to fall apart, right? So either it's physically going to fall apart, okay, or the maintenance just isn't going to be there, things aren't going to work out the way that you'd like them to. Ms. Dorothy's going to talk more about the partnerships. What I'm going to talk about is when you're doing the planning piece about school gardens, what do you need to take into consideration? So what's right about school gardens? What are school gardens good for? Why are we here? Why are we even talking about this right now? So connecting kids with healthy foods. What else can school gardens do for us?
Education.
Education, absolutely. We can get kids hands-on in the garden, working on multiple subjects. It can change the world, absolutely, because the things that you eat change your body, and you in turn can change the world, right? Okay, so if you have a school garden, what can go wrong with it?
Neglect.
Neglect? Bugs, right? Right, vandalism, stealing, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And when you're planning your school gardens, you need to make sure to take all of those things into consideration, okay? So when you are starting out, we are going to try and start out small. Because if you're starting out on this huge, huge scale, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. And it's kind of hard to garner support for that sort of project up front, especially if you're in the schools and teachers are already kind of strapped for time as it is, and we want to make sure that this is a sustainable process. So there are 5 different types of gardens that we can really look into. We're going to go from smallest to largest, and this small thing that you can really start doing on your own is windowsill gardens. So windowsill gardens, I'm sure you, just from the name, they start in windowsills. You can put them in any container that you want. They're great for the classroom. They're great for the kitchen, and they're really easy to help maintain, right? Any drawbacks about windowsill gardens that you can think about? Any maintenance issues with windowsill gardens? What's that? Can we just raise hands so I can? Yes. You can leave it there, right? Kind of easy to forget. What else? So I'm going to be asking for participation in a lot of this. All right, that's how I feel.
You have to make sure it gets enough sun.
Right.
It's not on a sunny window.
Absolutely. So you need to make sure it gets enough sun. You need to make sure it gets enough water. If you're with little kids, you need to make sure that they're not getting too much water, right? So there's a lot of things that go into that, and part of planning any size school garden is making sure that you bounce ideas off the people that you're planning that with. So if you're planning that as a teacher alone in the classroom, then maybe you talk to your students and say, okay, well, what do we need to make sure happens with this? What do we need to make sure doesn't happen with this, right? And make sure that we think about all avenues of maintenance, what we're going to do with that produce, and how we're going to integrate education into that experience. Our second option for school gardens, right? So we have our windowsill gardens, okay? We also have container gardens, right? So small containers. You can really use anything. How many of you have ever seen those big bathtubs that are filled up with plants, right? Or tires, or kiddie pools, or anything like that, right? So those are another option for you in building school gardens. And that's a really wonderful lesson when you think about recycling and when you think about reusing the resources that you already have. This one doesn't really take that many funds into consideration if you're already using the products that you have. However, there are some pitfalls to that as well. Who can think of something that you need to consider when talking about containers? The size of the container, absolutely. Because you're a little limited in what you're growing. Because if the container is this big and you want to grow carrot, is the carrot going to grow in that much soil? No. Okay, what else? We have to think about placement, right? You have to think about if you want this container on wheels, because that's a possibility too. Management, right? Who's going to take care of this? Is one person going to be responsible for bringing it all around the school? Is one person going to be responsible for making sure it gets watered and all that kind of thing, right? So when you bounce ideas off other people, just like we're doing right now, you're able to give a different perspective, then you'd be able to give a different perspective, and so on and so forth, right? And that's why collaboration is really key when you talk about building school gardens. What's one of the most common school garden setups that y'all have seen?
Raised beds.
Raised beds, absolutely. So raised beds offer more space than windowsill gardens, right, or small container gardens. But let's think about the maintenance of raised beds. So we have to build those beds, right? And those beds normally take into consideration some funding, right? Or maybe you need to get things donated, okay? We need to take into consideration how big the kids are that are going to be using them, right? If they can reach the middle of the bed, because if you have a really, really big bed and no one can reach the middle of it, are you going to be able to plant there? Nope. Okay. So what you can also consider with raised beds, though, is that you can make them any size that you want. So you can tailor them to the size that fits your kids most. If you need beds that are accessible to maybe like senior citizens, you can actually raise them even higher off the ground. I know we're used to seeing the ones that are about this high, right? We kind of have to bend down and work with them, but there are ones on stilts, right? You can do things with those. Things to consider when you have raised beds that are stationary, right? We talked about things that can move around. That's a little easier to maintain, right? But when they're stationary, what's something to consider? So if you have a garden, right? Say you have 6 raised beds. They're in the ground. Stuff's growing. What do you got to do? Anyone? Yep. Weed. You have to weed? Absolutely. So that's part of the maintenance inside of the bed. Definitely. Absolutely. So you need to make sure that there's enough space for people to walk through. You need to make sure there's enough space for other things to get through. What else might need to get between those beds?
Wheelbarrows.
Right, wheelbarrows. Maybe not tractors, but maybe lawnmowers, right? Depending on the way that your garden is enclosed. Something that I personally experienced in my school garden up in Greenwood is that we had railroad ties around the outside of our garden. And while it looked really nice when we did it at first, right? We went in, there were 6 beds, railroad ties all around the side. We put bark chips down in the middle, right? Tried to suppress the weeds. But what we found was that when those bark chips broke down, those weeds popped back up, and then we had no good way to kind of get in between those beds and really maintain that in a way that was easy to work with the grounds crew, and that was not super labor intensive, because we know that if it takes a lot of work, then people aren't going to want to put in all of that work, especially if there's a better way for it to be done. Okay? So what we wound up doing was removing those railroad ties. We let those bark chips break down even further, and now we're just mowing in between those beds. Okay? What's another essential thing that we need to consider when planning a garden? Time, absolutely. absolutely. So you want to consider time of the year, so different climates. So there are opportunities for you to do hoop houses. How many of you have seen hoop houses before? Okay. So what hoop houses are is they are rods that go over a bed, and they can be anywhere from this high to real tall, like as tall as that thing right there. And those are called high tunnels, and these are called low tunnels. Right, and what you do is you insulate those with either a fabric or a plastic, and that makes your growing season longer. Okay, and you're able to grow foods for a lot longer than if you just left things out in the open. Okay, there's also a greenhouse option, which is much more expensive, right? And there's also a cold boxes, right, which have a liftable screen up front, and you're able to plant in there, and it insulates the heat, so you can tend to the plants when you open it, but then when you close it, they're protected from the elements. Okay, so climate is absolutely something else, but what's something that we need to do to any garden, no matter the size? Water it, absolutely. So when you're planting your school garden, right? If you have a windowsill garden, you're probably going to use a watering can, right? Easy enough. Okay. If you have a movable garden, you might use a watering can, you might use a hose. Okay. Now, when you have a raised bed system or even a large-scale garden, right? If you decide that you're going to go the whole hog and you're going to put in a field as big as this room, and you want to go for chicken coops and all that, whatnot, you need to find a way to water all that, right? So, what's something to consider when you're building that? Location. Yep. What else?
Access to water.
Access to water. Right? So not only do you need sunlight, but you need to make sure that there's a water source nearby. And maybe that's a spigot on the side of the school. Maybe that is being able to tap in. Maybe the city would put in a tap for you. It depends where you are, and it depends what your resources are. But in terms of irrigation, you need to be able to get that water, and you need to be able to have a constant stream of water. So rain barrels are an excellent option, right? However, sometimes it doesn't rain, and sometimes you're not able to use that. So things to consider when you're irrigating your beds as well is if you want to use things like drip irrigation, right? Soaker hoses, sprinklers, all of those things are things to think about and have different maintenance requirements and have different funding levels as well. So when you're taking into consideration these things, it's very important to start off with maybe a budget at first, and then work down, and then try and troubleshoot before the troubles come out. Because that way you're going to save yourself a lot of time, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches, and you're going to be able to really enjoy the garden that you're planting, that you're working so hard on, instead of trying to fix the things that spring up here and there, here and there, and here and there. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about the actual beds? Yes.
I'm starting a school garden at a school right now in the process. We have a garden club now, and we have a greenhouse, a small greenhouse we've assembled, but we're also wanting to raise beds. And I'm really like on the fence, no pun intended, about what material should I use. I mean, I used to own a garden design company, and so I'm very familiar, but I'm just trying to I don't know why I'm having a difficult time narrowing down somebody that hasn't experienced what material. I mean, I was just assuming going to use lumber, like a 2x8 or 2x12.
Absolutely. So I think the standard go-to is using lumber. One of the things that you'd like to look for is a rot-resistant wood and a wood that repels insects and that sort of thing, so you don't have to worry about termite damage. That's something that we've also had to worry about. And you really don't want to use treated wood because things like railroad ties and any of that, those chemicals will leach right into the soil and contaminate your vegetables. What we've had to do is just kind of replace our beds throughout the years, and I believe we used pine the last time.
But how long do you find that it lasts? I mean, in my home garden I know, but I guess
we did. I think ours went 5 years.
Okay, that's
5
what
years.
I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
So in terms of container planting, okay, so you can build beds like that. You can have containers. What else could you plant plants in? At school, at home? Tires. There you go. What's that? Water bottles? You could. I've seen that done. Okay. Anything else? Boots. I've seen boots and windowsills. Absolutely. Trays.
Old containers.
Old what?
Storage containers that you pack stuff in?
Yes, ma'am. All storage containers. Absolutely. Those are great options. And when we're thinking about those as well, what you need to think about is drainage, right? Making sure that you're not just going to be sitting your plants in water the whole time, making sure that it's going to be safe and easy to clean up, okay? And making sure that if you need to move it, right, you can move it. Can you move a bathtub? No, absolutely not. So you need to make sure that it's a really good spot, right? You need to make sure that's a sunny spot. But you can affect doing something on wheels. I've seen some gardens that are really cool. You put them in wagons, okay? And then they're able to bring classroom to classroom, and then during the day, what you can do is put that in the sun. You can make sure it gets its 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and those things grow. And it's doable, and it doesn't have to be a permanent structure. So your grounds committee is kind of like, oh, I don't know if we can handle a garden right now. That doesn't mean that you can't have one, right? And I think that that's the main thing that I want you to take away from these different types of gardens. Is you don't have to go the whole hog in order to start this process, in order to grow your own food, in order to really take control of what you're eating. And I think that's really important to realize. One of the things that we get bombarded with a lot is how to be healthy, right? We're always told, like, do this to be healthy, do that to be healthy, blah, 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 blah. If you don't do this, then you're not healthy. And I don't think that's true. I think when you start small and you start to expand, not only are you able to garner the support and slowly build that to the point where you need it and you can expand, and it's also more manageable, and you know that you're taking small steps at a time to get to the place that you want to go. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Dorothy.
I'm going to pretty much talk about sustainability and when is, I guess, just a simple idea or a dream or a thought on doing a school garden. What should we do, or what have we done first, or what should be done first? And I'm going to go through roughly about 7 different steps of what could be done. When the ideal has been formed that we're going to do a school garden, first we need partners. So you're looking at a committee of individuals. Let your mind flow, just any thought. And almost any thought could actually be a partner. You know, we say we're going to do a garden committee. Yes, it's at school. Does it have to be with just the teachers? No. But the main thing is to make sure that we get buy-in from administration. And I always put administration on the top of the list. Because if some administrations, for example, principals, you might want to take your kids outside. We have some principals that you got to really go through red tape to justify why that child is going outside. Nevertheless, just to say that even if you're going to look for bugs or different kind of leaves which is falling this time of year, you still got to have a reason to go out there. So it has to be incorporated into your lesson plan. And that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we include this. Even our superintendents need to know what's going on within his district. So you will put them in there. After principal, your superintendent, then you got your teachers. How do we get our teachers involved? We got to have buy-in at first by the principal. If the principal supports what's going on, then he has an opportunity, he or she has an opportunity to push it in the class and the staff meetings to say that we've had an interest. We got people who are willing, ready, and able to work with us. They are part of our partnership, and we would love for a lead teacher. And sometimes a teacher will be eager to take that lead on. So you get a teacher that's interested, and most of all, our students will be involved because the teachers are going to also have them involved. Not just having teachers, we need parents, other resources, our farmers. How do we sustain this garden after it's started? Let's just say you get the small miniature grant, which our organization does provide. We provide right now a $500 startup for our growers. We got a sign-in sheet going around somewhere. Indicate if that's an interest, and if so, we can email you that application. It's on a clipboard wherever the book is that's going around. What we're doing with that is to send it out to the schools to get them to apply for that particular grant. So resources is one of the things that we also going to have. So we're making that resource also be part of our team. You look at your stores within the community. What can a grocery store, what can Walmart, what can Lowe's or Home Depot, or what can Dollar General do for us? And I'm sure now if a Dollar General in every neighborhood, not just every town, but every neighborhood. They have a lot of garden supplies there. All the places I just named, you got mulch, you got topsoil, you got potted soil. So those are things that are there. Come in sometime with torn bags. So what are you looking for there? You got donations. So that's a great partner to have or to be on your committee. City government is another one because they can also help you with, you got leaves falling every day now. Whoever's out there that's gathering the leaves, you're looking at composting because we gotta have some soil, we gotta have some rich soil so we can grow our own than to buy it. So I try to use the resources that's already within my community that I can use without spending a nickel. So we're taking those leaves and we can take them and we can mulch in the garden. What's that gonna do? Reduce the labor that we're having to do to weed. Plus the mulching also creates what? What else does mulching do besides kill weeds? Anybody? Okay.
It retains moisture.
Retains moisture. It keeps the sun from hitting the root of the crop or the soil around it. So if you pick up a leaf tile or if you move cardboard or any plastic and just flip it, and the areas around it, it's going to be dry. But where you move that cardboard or whatever you use there, it's going to be moisture. So it helps maintain moisture so you're going to have a healthier plant that's not going to be deprived of water. So we still got that root drinking what it needs. We're still on the committee. Beside our students, our community members, our parents, and farmers. The next thing that we'll be looking at is you need somebody that's going to take that lead piece. So you're looking at a garden manager or you're looking at what teacher is going to take that leader role. Sometimes it's a science teacher, sometimes it's health and physical education teachers. And to me, they have a lot more leeway than some of your other classrooms because health and physical education can be combined with the school garden on an everyday assignment. Whatever you're looking at doing, you're bending, you're reaching, you're getting that physical activity in when you're working in a garden. So if you look at that, if you can't get a coach or a health and physical education teacher, then you look for somebody in the community. Sometimes you can find a champion in that community that'll be willing to work with, but then the schools still have to work with that person that's going to be managing that garden. What's some of the roles that that individual will have to have if he or she is going to be the garden manager? And that's coordinating volunteers to come in. And I know in that other session that was in here earlier, they talked about sustainability. What's some of the roadblocks that we've been finding when during the summer months when our garden is no longer, anybody here, school is closed and they come back in the fall, what you got? A whole bunch of weeds and overgrown the garden area. Is maintenance happening? No. What maintenance has possibly done while you were gone? They sprayed it to get that grass out of it. Not thinking about that we have just destroyed some healthy soil. That happened in one of our projects that we had. When we got back, beds were clean, but it was dead grass laying everywhere. We were wondering what was happening. Can't believe no grass. Yeah, maintenance sprayed it. What did we do? We pulled everything out because we couldn't use that soil. If so, we couldn't eat it. And if we ate it, what have we just done? Defeated what we've been trying to do all along, and that's to create healthy individuals. We couldn't do that with that contaminated soil. So you have to look for somebody who's going to help manage it. And that person will definitely look for some volunteers. And we got some students. We have to do volunteer hours. And I'm thinking that's almost in every school district that our students have to do community service work. If it's not, it should be. We need to know how to give back to our community. And it could be in a lot of simple ways. If we got, let's say this group of students, and we're looking at probably 30, just roughly, if each one of those kids chose X number of hours a day that they're going to work in their garden, entire summer is over with, and we probably hadn't done but 5 hours apiece in that garden. And it's perfectly clean. And just think, if one of them parents went out there with them and went in there as a partner, it doesn't take long to get it done. And if you do it on a regular basis, it's going to be clean pretty much the whole summer. Not just keeping it clean, we got to do what? As she said earlier, we got to make sure it's watered. We got to make sure it's nurtured in order to be able. And a plant is just like our students, or just like our babies. If we don't nurture that plant and give it the love and attention that it needs, it's gonna do us. And if we don't do it to our children, what's gonna happen? They're gonna die too. If we don't feed you or give you water like you needed when you were a baby, you won't be around long. So a plant is just as tender as a newborn baby. It needs us to make it to work. So that would be our garden manager and some of the things that he or she will have to do in that garden. Now we at our planting phase. What goes on in that planting phase? What that garden is gonna look like, what we wanna grow. And now when you're talking about gardening, it doesn't always mean stuff in the ground. It doesn't always mean that it has to be vegetables. It could also be fruit. We can have fruit gardens, we can have herb gardens. And one of the pieces that we push in our sessions when we're dealing with food garden is to be able to grow herbs. What are those herbs going to do?
Flavor.
Add flavor. And when we add the flavors that we need, now we can get rid of the excess salt. We can get rid of the excess fat. And if it was up to me, sugar wouldn't even be on this earth. Because we put too much sugar in everything that we eat. Sugar on our rice, sugar in our potatoes, sugar in our beans, sugar in our bread. Sugar, sugar, sugar. So if we can flavor our foods with herbs, it can do away with our sugar. Our sugars is designed to enhance, but not to destroy the natural flavors of our food. And I think that's where we lose some of our things. But if we look at what we're growing in our garden, and we teach our children in the classroom, even our parents can come in and volunteer and to do the taste testing of the foods that we're growing in the classroom. When we look at where we're gonna put this garden, she mentioned earlier, but you have to look for making sure that you got sunlight there. You want it to be where it's visible. You want it to attract other people to see and want to come in and help make a difference in the schools or in the community. So if we have it accessible, and if we have it where individuals can see it, you want it close to the school, but you also want to make sure it's not shaded from the buildings of the school. And you want plenty of sun, and definitely water has to be within a certain range. It's not a difficult to get extra hoses constantly to get out football field away from your school. If that's the only place, then we have to, but it should be some spaces closer on the campus than football field away from the school building. We also have to talk about in that planning session, how are we going to sustain this garden? How are we actually going to start the garden? Where money's going to come from? If it's all going to be donations, if so, where is it coming from? This is when you're still looking back at your partnerships. So that's still a key piece in the steps. Okay, now that we have decided where the money is coming from, where the locations of the garden is going to be, then we have to decide what we need to make this garden. And she talked about the different kind of containers of how the garden could be: container gardens, raised bed gardens, in-ground gardens. In-ground gardens is a little bit more work, but in the end, it pays off. Why? You got your natural soil already there. All your topsoil is there. So we don't have to bring in artificial soils to make the garden. You can actually do raised bed gardens, but you can still use the topsoil that's there. Just edge in, till in the soil that you have there, or dig in the soil that you have there. So that would be another component that you will have to consider when you're doing your garden. Next, you're going to have to look at what tools and equipment that you're going to need. Besides just the style gardens, you got to look at what we're going to do to get water out there, either water hoses, or we're going to need watering cans. You're going to need some type of weed control, which is either pulling the grass, or using your hand tools to be able to remove the grass that way. But you also have to look at having shovels. You're going to need the little hand time. Some kids, some adults, beautiful fingernails. I gave up on that probably 25 years ago. Because I can't work with gloves on. I just cannot work with gloves. It gets in my way. It takes away from my fingers being able to just pick up little stuff. I got to pull it off to pick up certain things. That means I don't need them on. And I tell my kids, soap and water takes care of everything. If soap and water can't clean it, then we don't need it there. And when you're using chemicals, that's one thing that I'll say, soap and water can't clean it. And I don't want you using it, and I definitely don't want you putting it on your hands. And it'll tell you don't let it become skin contact. So therefore, I don't even recommend any kind of chemicals. I had somebody this morning earlier said that they had in-ground plants like carrots and radishes, and they had bugs eat them from the ground. And we took our history students, working with a teacher. This particular child, we had talked to him, and he said that he had an idea. So we went to the teacher with it. And what we did, we took an interview of our seniors, want to know, when I say seniors, about our adults, 65 and older. Your 80-year-olds, if their minds were still there, 90-year-olds, you'd be amazed at the information that you can get. We wanted to know what did they do back, I'll just say in the 50s, the 60s, and back to, because almost every home at that point had some source of food on the ground. You either had a garden, fruit trees, or you had small livestock. And of course, some had cows. But you couldn't do that in the backyard. You had to go beyond the backyard if you had a cow. But chickens, goats, hogs, fruit trees, and almost any kind of vegetable you can think of was grown. So what did they do to get rid of what we have today is all kind of insects, all kind of bugs, worms, whatever you can think of, and how they ate up their crops or didn't eat up their crops. What did they do to prevent it? So we did some interviews just to talk to them about what they did. And we've come up with some amazing ideas. And one of the questions that the gentleman asked me this morning, and I shared with him, that we use cayenne pepper and water and Murphy soap. And that's our best friend. What does that do for you? We dilute the pepper in the water and we add Murphy soap. What does Murphy soap do? Allow the pepper water to stick to the leaves. Bugs cannot eat it. They can't stand it. And yes, bugs breathe. So when they breathe in the spicy smell or bite into the spicy smell or taste, they're gone. So that's one way to get rid of it. They talked about the cutworms. What can we do to get rid of cutworms? One old lady told us, she said, every eggshell that she pop an egg out of. We were like, okay, what are you going to do with that? She says, we take them, crush them up, put them around the base of tomato plants, certain greens like your collards and your cabbages, because those worms live there, they will eat it. So I want to know, what does the eggshells do? She said, when the worms eat the eggshells, who can give me a thought of what the eggshells would do to the worms? What is it? That's it. The eggshell would tear up the GI system. The eggshell is sharp and it cuts the inside of the digestive system, and that's what destroys it. So it's a lot of little things that's inexpensive and it's healthy, and you don't have to worry about putting gloves on your hand for it. So that's why we did that. So after those students got through with the interviews on that, the English teacher had them to write it up. So this is using your Common Core courses. She wrote, the students had to write up the findings. Some of the students in their science class, they actually applied this in the school garden. And in your math class, what did they have to do? Calculated how long it took for that particular plant to grow. They measured leaves as the leaves were growing. They made sure that the garden got at least an inch of water a week. So it was simple stuff that you would think would never think of that could actually be used, and how everything can be incorporated back into your Common Core courses to be able to use a garden to do. At the same time, it piques their interest. Students are very excited about what they can do with their hands and what they've grown. I listened to some youth Tuesday morning, and they stole my heart. They truly stole my heart. To listen to them talk about what the garden had done for them, how it has transformed their lives, and to be able to have something to do on the weekend or something to do in the evenings after school than to just hang out or to play on a Nintendo game or whatever game is popular today all day long. So to listen to those students talk and talk about, and to listen, the leadership, and just to develop their social skills has been a plus for them. And I'm like, wow, if we can just get enough students to have that love for that type of work, we would have some awesome students. And it showed that they had improvement in their test scores, and improvement in the math, science, and English and history courses. Why? Because it allowed them to be themselves. It allowed them to identify with something, and that builds their self-esteem. So some of those students are actually in here today, and I can look at 2 or 3 of them in here that I do remember seeing on Tuesday at the Women's and Agriculture Conference. They were there, and I was truly impressed with the work that they were doing. So now that we have our garden site and where we're going to put it, what are we going to put in it? So we'll think about what are we going to plant, what type gardens we're going to have, what vegetables do we want to grow, if we want fruit trees out there. And yes, now school gardens have rabbits, school gardens got chickens, they have ducks, they have worms, and worms is our best friend. If they're looking at doing composting, you can do cold composting, you can do the vermicomposting, and the benefits of those. One of the things that we do with our school gardens and with our children, it's a fundraising project for them. And they are taught the business side of the garden. They are taught how to do the planning, a garden plan from start to finish. And that includes the financial piece, the marketing piece, and actually just the agricultural part of the growing process. So that's the garden plan part of it. And I'll tell anyone, if you start a school garden without volunteers, you have set yourself up to fail. What can a volunteer do for you in your school garden? As I said earlier, the after school, at the end of the year, we got 2 months, so we're looking at probably about 9 weeks that you're out of school. We're not just looking at using our kids as the community service volunteers. You have church groups that does volunteer work. You got the different fraternities and sororities that are looking for volunteer hours because it's a part of their projects or part of their organization that they have to have this. Your master gardeners that are set up by Mississippi State or any of your land grant universities have master garden programs. Is at your extension office in your county. Those guys are looking to do some volunteer service. They can also help you to design your school garden, depending on what your needs are. If you let them know what you're looking for and what you need, they are there. They are there to work with you. It's just there for your accent. How can we keep this garden going besides volunteers, besides the donations? There are several grant programs that are available right now that can assist us. I have a table over in the Spotterman building that has some information, have my card there, and you can contact me of any interest that you have, and I can send out the information that we got. The sign-in sheet, if your email is on, I'm gonna automatically send you those resources that we have. And the miniature grant that I mentioned that's out there, if you email me, I can send it to you. And that's Dorothy, D-O-R-O-T-H-Y, .mega, M-E-G-A, @gmail.com. That particular grant that I can send you, we have one, and I don't think they've gotten all the fund, all of the money has not been used up, and that's with the state of Mississippi, with the Department of Ag and Commerce. They have a $500 grant that's out there for school gardens. Mississippi Farmers School Network has one out there. And our speaker for tonight has a garden grant, and that's Chef Ann Cooper. She also has some available funding out there for school gardens. But I have that list that I could actually email you because we were printing and copying so much stuff that we forgot to print that one as a handout. But it's also listed in our newsletter, and if you have not been on our newsletter that we send out monthly, I would also include that attachment with it as well. There's a question. Questions? Any?
How much money can a student take out for student loan?
Huh?
For student loan program, you saying?
Not the student loan program. This is for your garden grant program.
How much can you probably take out maximum?
What's the amount of the grant?
The grants are $5,000.
And there are different grants and they vary in amounts depending on where you find them. So maybe the one in the store is
Some
talking
is
about
5,000,
5,000.
some of them are 500, and it'll have it on the list, it'll tell you how much.
You
Pardon
need
me?
to apply for any agriculture student?
Oh, you're talking about grants for college. Right, it's for college. I have a copy of one that was sent to me that I got just a couple of days ago that will help if you're going to it's a 1890 school grant for students that want to major in ag. And I could email it to you if you put your name on the list and indicate where your interest is, and I'll be able to send that to you. So talk to me afterward, and I'll make sure we find you on the list, and I'll attach what you're looking for. So there are some out there that we have. Any other questions? And Coach, I think I sent an application to another lady that was with you on Tuesday. I sent her a copy of that grant application for the $500.
Yes, ma'am, it's bid.
Okay,
We're getting work on it now.
okay. All right.
For the sustainability part of it, are these grants issued once to a program? Or can you, if you're struggling as a program, as a
Okay.
start?
With the two $500 one, the one that Mississippi Farm to School Network, that one is a one-time per school. But any other school in the district can apply with one per school. And it's the same thing that I saw on the one from the Department of Ag and Commerce. That one is a one-time implement. And there's another one, but I would have to get the contact information on it, but it's through Mississippi State. They have one that's out that's also for $500. And if you think about it, if you apply for all three, then you got $1,500. They can go a long way on starting or even enhancing what you're already working with. So that will be a plus as well.
There are also some things like Annie's Organics. They actually have, right, they have a great, they have a grant actually, but they also have a really wonderful how to build a school garden guide. So a lot of sites that have guides like that, they will probably send you in the direction of grants that can help get you going or keep you going and that sort of thing. It's a good way to start and kind of branch out from there.
I'm wondering, just in terms of like working with the students, what has been your experience, either one of y'all, on how best to get them to sort of in an organized way do the actual gardening? I've been thinking about like forming teams or groups, not teams, I don't really want to use that word, but groups, you know, like 4 students or something in a group. Because I have a garden club, it's like a certain time of day that we do this. And I was just wondering if that's something y'all tried or what, I mean, so it's not, you know, just to get them where they're not just, seems like it's been a little chaotic sometimes. Right now it's, I do 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders at the garden club on Monday afternoons after school. And I'm trying to figure out how to let everybody participate, but then also have it not just be so, you know. And I have a master gardener that volunteers that works with me on this day.
Do you have individualized plots or?
But we're just starting.
Oh, okay.
Right now we actually have a greenhouse we assembled that the school had 15 years. They never assembled it. And they found it in a shed, and so my husband and I assembled it. And so we're starting with like microgreens, and I've got like trays that I have Lowe's donate. But we have a beautiful area for this garden. And we want to do raised beds, you know, that's sort of but I'm trying to get the kids involved and trying to figure out how to kind of get them to be more focused. It seems like,
Children are very competitive.
Uh-huh.
And if you're talking about putting them in groups or in teams or whichever you want to call them, then you can do challenges. For an example, whose garden grows the largest, the one that gives out the most produce, and you can do like leaf measurements of the leaves or the height of the plant, and like I say, and the amount of produce that's being produced from that group's garden. And then you got a champion that will get maybe 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place type stuff.
Oh, that's good.
And then you're looking at those students I mean, they just love to compete. At that age, they're eager to be the top of whatever they're working on. So that has worked.
That's a good idea.
You can do it
Okay.
with more monotonous tasks as well. So like if you don't want to be weeding the garden all the time, then the first 10 minutes of your garden club is we're having a competition who can pull the most weeds in 10
Oh,
minutes.
that's a great idea.
And you do it at the beginning of every week, and they will gladly run out there and pull all of them for you, thinking it's fun.
Also
Yeah.
trying to capture the leaves, you know, or composting. That's a good idea. You can rent the.
And another source, you talk about leaves for the compost. You can also, if you got a shredder, if you don't, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money. If you don't have one, we do have manual shredders. Classroom paper,
Right.
you get rid of waste. Instead of the kids putting that paper in the garbage, that paper can be put in the compost box, and it can be carried out at the end of the day to the compost pile. And when you're looking for that green to go with that carbon, then you can work with your food service directors on that to see if they would allow you to take whatever vegetable waste.
Yeah, we have,
uncooked.
I have luckily an enrichment teacher at our school is, we're trying to work with our students in the cafeteria to capture, and then we'll use it.
Napkins can be taken. I think they've gotten away from most of the cartons. They're using, most of them are using plastic bottles. You can use them as well. Use them as something that you can plant your seeds in. Just cut them in half and you got a planter. So I'm a recycler. I just take whatever is out there. One man's garbage is another man's treasure. So I use what I have, and then I go from there seeking other things to help enrich what we're doing.
Thank you so much. Those are some great ideas.
Well, that means, Sarah, we must have done a good job. We don't have any more questions. And I, again, will say thank you all for coming. And I think we might have a few more minutes. If there's anything else that you all want to talk about beyond what we presented, we will be glad to answer any questions on that.
And
or
if-
point you in the right direction.
And if you think of anything throughout the conference, I mean, both of us will be around, so
Right.
please feel free to come up, ask questions. We'd be happy to talk with you, connect with you after this conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.